stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Supervisor Milky is excused. Treasurer Rice.
Here.
Clerk Cody here. Trustee Bills.
Here.
Trustee Brown.
Here.
Trustee Hauck.
Here.
Trustee Thering.
Here.
All.
All right, and we need to make an appointment for the stand-in supervisor.
I'd like to make a motion to have Treasurer Rice be our stand-in supervisor for this evening.
Support. All right, and all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, thank you. And that moves us on to the approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Motion and support, any discussion?
Other than we're just going to take a little 5-minute break.
Okay, yep. Anything else? All right, go ahead. Oh, all,
We don't have to
yeah,
do
that's
roll
right,
call.
sorry.
Unless,
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, and that brings us to presentations.
Thank you, and
Mr.
good evening,
Surveyor?
everybody. We have a presentation tonight from Mr. Mark Griffiths. He is the Director of the Isabella County Office of Emergency Management. He's going to talk to us for just a few minutes on the 911 surcharge that's going to be on the ballot in a week or so. And the presentation that we'd originally had planned for behind us doesn't look like it's going to be there, but you do have handouts. So with that, welcome, Mr. Griffiths.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Thank you to the public for watching, allowing me to speak to them. And we'll go off the sheet. I apologize to the public. We'll try to get the slides up for them later on. Slide 1 is obviously the vote August 3rd 911 renewal. Slide 2 is a 30-second clip reminding people to vote, and it has a short moving part about our first responders and 911 answering phone calls and showing some of the stuff that was going on in the center. Slide 3 is the bottom of page 1. Again, it's a surcharge renewal, but it's not an increase at all that we want to stress, so everybody can understand it. And that renewal, I'll go into more detail, but it shows up on your phone bill. On the top of page 2, you have to forgive me, I put my reader glasses on for this, is our annual report down there. You can see that we dispatch for 7 law enforcement agencies, 12 fire departments, 1 EMS agency, and animal control. We work with many, many other first responder and second responder agencies for referrals as we go forward. On the left side of that slide that you have there, you can see all of our annual stats. We answer over 150,000 phone calls. We dispatch over 69,000 complaints. And part of what the surcharge has helped us accomplish in the last 5 years that you've had is we are upgrading our technology. You actually were getting more information on your cell phone when a stranger called you and it popped up than what we were able to capture off of our backup 911 center. It was an old pickup phone probably 20 years ago. It was older tech. Now we have the ability to do better positioning on it. We have the ability to have the caller ID. There's now even new telemetrics that sometimes is transmitted from new cars. You see this in the Ford Sync and other manufacturers. And we also have another option right now to have people text 911. We've been texting, I'm sure, with your families and friends for years. We now can accept text at 911. So we're trying to also stress, and you'll see that come out as an educational part, call if you can, because calling's the best for us. Text if you can't. But if you are injured, you can't talk. If you have any type of speech or communication impediment, you can text now. Come right to the dispatcher. It's talking to if there's a bad guy breaking into your house and you need that type of assistance, you can talk by texting to us. The dispatcher can do it. The important part in this page 2 middle slide that I want to stress is we have no general fund support. Okay, we're not funded by the Isabella County General Fund. There is no millage for supporting 911. We are 100% funded by the surcharge. You'll see on there, because I know how revenues are reported, we have a small agreement with Central Michigan University about our software that we use for both of our dispatch centers. It's in and it's out. It's not really a source of revenue that provides any services to citizens in Isabella County. The revenue shows up on your phone bill. You'll see it in two forms: a state surcharge that's controlled by the state, and a local surcharge. And it's important that you understand how much the local surcharge means to the funding of the operation of the 911 center. If you look on the state surcharge, you'll notice that the state collected, under the Public Act 32, they collected $44 million for the 911 fee to come in. It's 25-cent fee on monthly devices. And then if you were buying prepaid phones or cards and stuff, there was a 5% fee. $44 million sounds like a lot of money until you divide it up amongst all of the 911 centers in all of the 83 counties in Michigan. And then when you break that down to what it Isabella County get out of $44 million, we got $219,073. So our local surcharge, how that works is that appears as a fee collected by the phone service providers. And we did have a citizen offer their phone bill for our example to show where it is, and it shows a $3 fee on it. That fee has been there for 5 years now on our surcharge. We're hoping that if it's renewed, that it will continue. It is our source of operational revenue. And it goes on any device that can call 911. And as you guys said tonight, your first night with your iPads and stuff, some people actually have iPads and other devices that can dial 911 right from the iPad. So that's how the device part of it works, and people ask me questions on that. Other people have asked me questions, well, you know, I got 5 cell phones, and it's my grandchild that is in charge of the phone bill, and so I'd be paying on all those devices, and we do explain, yep, each device has that. Where does your grandchild live? Well, we live out of state. Well, then Isabella County doesn't see any of the revenue on that because it's based on where the bill is going. So it's important to understand that too. If somebody else in the family out of Isabella County is having that bill sent to there, we're not collecting that money. So when you look at the next slide, in the middle of page 2, 87% of our operating fund per year is the local surcharge. The rest of it's that state surcharge that we talked about. It's important to know that that's approximately $1.5 million. It varies by the cell phone providers. They collect the fee. We don't ever know how many subscribers the cell phone provider has. You can also imagine it goes up and down. So there's not a real knowledge. All we can tell you is, you know, we collected about $1.5 million last year, and that's what we operate on to provide the services. The last slide on there, or next to last slide, is the ballot language, just so you can see it and be educated what it will look like when it comes out on. And on the last slide, it's obviously remember that your vote counts. August 3rd is the vote. It is a special election, and we hope that people will turn out for that vote. Are there any questions I can answer about it this time? Or is that good?
I had no idea you could text 911.
Yeah, and we're about to educate everybody. We just got that part of the upgrades. We also, with this older 20-year technology, we could only transfer your 911 call to 9 or 6 other select centers. Now we've got what's called next generation 911, and we have one more cutover out of 130 plus carriers. But now we can transfer your phone call to 911 centers. We can conference you in on phone calls that we could do. I mean, you can do a lot of this stuff on your cell phone. It takes a while for that to catch up, and we're catching up, and this stuff's providing services. Texting is amazing into that. You know, we have that. We have some other free services that are on there. A Smart 911, you'll see the plug for that. That's you know, if you want to tell the public about it and your family about it, you can make a profile. I've got a cat called Cujo. I've got medicines. My cat's actually called Megan, but Cujo sounds much better for a cat. Diabetic medicines. You know, maybe I hide my key in my front door under the flower pot. I don't have flowers. Somebody may say he's lying. I'll go to my house. But you know, the bottom line is when you call that operator, it's securely transmitted, and we can check that. There was a success story out of Grand Traverse County where the 911 center pinned the person out in the middle of the lake. But when they read, I guess, the profile of Smart 911, they said he had a cabin. They sent, I think it was a police officer there, fully fired, the person was unconscious, and they saved. So it's a great free one. We have a lot of businesses in Union Township as well. There's a rave facility program that's out there that's free and be applied to this building as well. You can upload your footprint. If for some reason somebody throws a rock through the window, you have an accident or a break into your thing in the middle of the night, you can upload what you want us to know, so we can call the key holders and stuff, and it's much more updated than the fax you used to send us with 3 names on it and our address, so. Plus it helps us notify, you know, like you have ball fields and everything else, if they dial 911, it'll pull a map up. Because the other time is sometimes we call it field number 1, sometimes we call it Joey's Field, you know, so it helps us have more information to help serve the public. So all those are free. And again, we just want to, the technology's upgrading, our radio system's in progress to upgrade for being able to talk to first responders better. So a lot of things are going on, but they're not possible if we don't have the surcharge for operating. Is there any other questions?
Well, good luck to you in August. August 3rd.
So how much is the local surcharge? I'm sorry. I mean, how much do you get from that?
About 1.5 million.
1.5 million,
Yeah, it's
okay.
tough to see there. About 1.5 million, and we get 200,000 for the state.
Right.
So that makes up the total amount
Excellent.
that we put in. Yep, so appreciate that. Thank you for your time tonight, and all needs to be.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Sorry the slides didn't work, it was a really cool.
All right. And that moves us on to public comment. This is restricted to 3 minutes regarding anything on this agenda. So let's open public comment at 7:11. Oh, yes, sorry. Please come up to the podium.
Well, good evening. My name is Kathy Tarrant, and I live at 407 South Anna Street in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. And I represent the citizens in support of Isabella County 911. There is a committee of us that really believes the 911 saves lives. And we knew that there was an election coming up, but most people, we figured, wouldn't think about August as the time to go to the polls. So we wanted to make sure that we got the word out there that there is an election, and it's very important that they vote that. So we went to the community. We don't have Mark's government funds. So we went to the community and got individual donations and from some businesses, and we were able to earn enough to be able to have over 100 signs. You might have seen some on the roads. We spent many, many hours out there posting those signs. We also purchased radio ad time, and tomorrow you will, if you listen to these stations, there are 3 of them, WCFX 95.3, Buck 92, which is 92.3, and then my 103 WCZY, and they will be starting tomorrow through Tuesday. So listen to those, and we also purchased what we call cards, and these say 911 yes, and then on the other side it's a reminder to vote, and please vote yes. And we as a committee can say vote yes, Mark can't. So we just wanted to remind everybody to vote. We're hoping that there isn't a problem, but you just never know. And it's the only thing on the ballot. So please come out and vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Can I get your name again, please?
Yes, it's Kathy with K, T-A, T as in Tom, A-R-R-A-N-T.
Kathy, do you have any of those cards that we could put in our
They are
business?
all at the fair.
Oh, it's fair.
If you'd like
Okay.
to come and visit us at the fair booth, we have lots of cards.
Okay.
And we have candy. So when we ask people, are you an Isabella County voter? And they say, no, we're from Midland. You can have a piece of candy anyway.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Kathy.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Please remember to come up to the podium and give your name and address for us.
My name's Joe Quant. I live in Traverse City, but I have an office here in the Township. I'm here on behalf of Chris Doyle. I didn't know if there would be an opportunity to address the board during deliberation of the Chris Doyle SUP that's before you. Just wanted to introduce some of the folks on our team. You have the owners here from Chris Doyle. Just so you know, that's not a faceless corporation. These are guys who are responsive and responsible to the communities that they serve. And we also have our representative engineer from GDI Engineering as well. So if you have any questions about the site plan or anything in the SUP application or about the company in general, because I know there were some questions about the services that the company provides during the planning commission meeting, we want to be responsive to that, have everybody here to answer those questions. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have during the consideration of the agenda item, but I did want to just let you know we're all here.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that okay to turn?
Yes. Thank you for putting that on. Anybody else want to come up and speak? Not seeing any. We will close public comment at 7:14. And that brings us to reports and board comments. The current list of boards and commissions. Do we have any that need to be?
Couple on the sidewalk committee coming up here
Yes, thank you.
August 15th.
Yep. I have reached out to the two that are their seat is. They actually just got appointed onto it, Mr. Seiler and Mr. Hertzler, and their term is ending because they came in to fill a seat. So that term is ending. One of which has made mention that they wanted to be remaining on there. I have not heard from the other. So hopefully they're still wanting to be on that. But again, they have to apply. Have we received any? Yes.
Was it Mr. Seiler?
Okay, that's the one I hadn't heard from. So okay.
And if I may,
Yeah, go
just for
ahead.
the board's benefit, the appointment of these members is by the Planning Commission.
Correct.
So it'll be run through there.
Perfect. And then I don't think there's any others. Correct? Please correct me if I'm wrong.
There's 2 vacancies on the ZBA. Right?
Vacant seats, yes. Okay. Yep. So if anybody is interested in ZBA or knows anybody that's interested in joining ZBA, please have them fill out a application. Other than that, let's go ahead and move on. Did you have anything you wanted to say about monthly activity report?
I do not.
Okay. All right. Then Planning Commission, ZBA, and EDA updates by our Community and Economic Development Director, Mr. Nanny.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be in person with you tonight. It's been a busy month for our boards. Our Planning Commission met on the 20th of July. They did review the item you have before you tonight, the Crystal Oil Filling Station Special Use Permit. And as you noted in your packet, they did ultimately recommend approval of that, subject to several conditions we can talk about at that time. They also took a look at a preliminary site plan. Which, if you know, under our new ordinance, our site plan process is divided into a preliminary stage, you might call it a conceptual plan stage, and then a final site plan stage. And they did also take action to approve the preliminary site plan, subject to a number of conditions that would be addressed on the final site plan, and also subject to contingent on board approval and special use. The final item of the Plan Commission agenda is a set of amendments to our zoning ordinance. Anytime you update a zoning ordinance, in my experience, prior to coming here with a consulting hat for many years, I've worked on many zoning ordinance projects, and I always tell the community the same thing. After about a year, you're going to have a list of kind of a punch list of items that need to be tweaked, little adjustments need to be made from using the new ordinance. And that's where we are. And so the Plan Commission was presented with that set of amendments. They did start that review, but it didn't have time to really dig into it deeply. They're actually looking at potentially having a special meeting in August to dedicate it just to looking at that list of amendments. So that will be coming up. The Zoning Board of Appeals did not have a meeting in July. They don't have a meeting in August, but I can report that they will have a meeting in September. We do have an application for variance that's come in, and that will be on their September agenda. And finally, our Economic Development Authority Board also had a very busy meeting. They're in the process right now of reviewing the updates to the east and the west ADA district development plans and tax increment financing plans with the goal of renewing those districts for another period of time. Those will eventually be coming before you. At their July meeting, they reviewed the draft west ADA district plans. The plans are wrapping up and will be on their August agenda. So very positive comments about them, very positive comments about the scope of what they're looking at. In addition to that, they also looked at, considered a renewal of the fire protection services agreement. This is the agreement with the township that allows for sharing of some of the captured tax revenues for the fire millage, sharing those to help ensure that funding is available for fire protection services in the east and west EDA districts. They did approve that agreement. That will also be coming before you next month for your action on it. This is an agreement that's been in place for many years. It's just the latest version of that. Both the Plan Commission and the EDA did discuss briefly looking at in-person meetings. Both of them asked that we have that on their agenda next month as a discussion item, but for the moment they continue the Zoom meeting process. That's the gist of it for tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about those things.
I just had one, because when I was reading through that Crest Oil, it just seemed like, at the first, it seemed like there was maybe a problem with the use of having the gas station there as opposed to a medical facility or something?
Well, the Plan Commission, if you're looking at the June meeting minutes, this was the public hearing minutes. The Plan Commission did identify a number of concerns that they had. They postponed action on the request in June. Traffic was a concern. That's reflected in their recommendation. They were concerned about, or some discussed concerned about the number of gas stations, the location, what is the best activity to have happen, best development for that area. It was actually a very vigorous discussion, and as it should be. The Plan Commission really works best when there's good discussion and it ultimately comes to a consensus, and that's what happened here.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. And that moves us down to board member reports. I guess I'll start over here with Trustee Brown, and we'll work around.
No report tonight.
No report? Okay. Trustee Bills?
I attended 2 meetings. I attended the Isabella County Board of Commissioners meeting on July 20th. And just a couple of things on that. Mainly thing was Margaret McAvoy is going to retire January 1st. So that was the main thing. And then also they put the full faith and credit behind that Mission Creek Drain project. So they signed on to that and got them a lower interest rate. That's all I had on that one. And then I also attended the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe powwow, and that was very interesting. I don't know what to say, but the native dancing and everything was excellent.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any,
Thanks, Kenny.
Thank you.
any questions or comments? All right, so Trustee Thering, do you have anything?
No.
And make sure when you guys are talking to talk into the mics.
Oh, sorry.
That's something that's new, so.
From the Planning Commission, I think I'll defer to Rodney as far as any comments to be made.
Okay, all right. And going along to
I
Trustee
attended a
Mark.
road commission meeting last Thursday, the 22nd. They talked about some wedging that they're gonna do on some of the real bad roads. There's spots that they're gonna build up to try to make roads better, last longer. They ran the gravel road project that they're doing. You know, we aren't doing any of that this year, but there's no gravel left. The gravel pits don't have employees to make gravel.
Oh, my God.
It's, so it's a bad deal for them. But anyway, some of the roads that they want to get done, they're not going to get done till later on. That's where they pay for 1 mile, and then the township pays for a mile. But that's been delayed, so. And then they also talked about progress on their new building. They're getting the exterior done. I don't know if anybody's been by there, but looks a lot better than the other one.
Yeah.
Then last Wednesday night, I went to a Council of Governments meeting in Rosebush at Isabella Township. One of the main topics of discussion there was stimulus money, how some of the townships aren't even going after it.
Right.
You know, they don't want to fill the paperwork out. It's amazing.
Wow.
They talked about the duties of a treasurer in the township, and then I brought up a discussion that hopefully maybe some of them will go back to their county commissioners with. I talked about a trash compactor. Someone in the audience brought this up to me, that if the recycling center had a trash compactor, maybe some of these couches and stuff that we see along the sides of the road, you know, I don't know, you pay $10 and go get the thing compacted instead of throwing it out in the road. I don't know if any of you guys saw, I have pictures on my phone. I was gonna share them with you guys, but I forgot to. You know the turnaround that we just cleaned up like 3 or 4 weeks
Yeah.
ago? There's trash all over it again. I mean, it's ridiculous. So, if we see county commissioners, let's see if we can maybe do something like that. Or maybe it's a way for Union Township to make some money, Mark. Maybe we should put one right out here. I'm done. Thank you.
Bill, did they talk anything about the start of that project on Lincoln and Broomfield? That
No.
they didn't talk about that?
I
'Cause they had an
still-
August start on that, and I just wondered if they said anything in the meeting.
Well, I think they're waiting for another easement.
Oh, they're still waiting on
There's
these.
one or two more easements that they were waiting
All right,
on.
I appreciate it, thank you.
So,
With regard to the stimulus money, the county did a workshop with the townships.
I know.
And showed them how to do it,
yeah,
too. I mean,
that was like
doesn't get any easier than
Yeah.
that.
the 20th, the night before this
Yeah.
meeting. Because a couple of the township treasurers were there at that meeting, and went to that. That's the, you know.
Thanks, Bill.
Any other? Okay. Clerk Cody, do you have anything? No? Okay. And nothing for me, so let's move on to the consent agenda.
I
I'll make
move
a
to
motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
support.
Okay. Motion and support. Any discussion? Who had, well, I know who had warrants, but Mr.
Okay,
Brown.
all's clean on the warrants, we're good.
Okay. All right. And if there's no further discussion,
I have a discussion. Why are they called warrants instead of accounts payable? I mean, they're accounts payable. Why are they called?
I normally say accounts payable, yes.
I'm new, Bill,
No,
that's what
it's
they call them
weird.
since
I
I came
wonder
in.
why we call them warrants. I mean, it sounds like we're out to get after somebody.
That's what the state statute
Oh.
Yeah.
refers to them
Is
as.
it for the state?
All right. So there's a motion and support. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right. And that brings us to new business. And first for discussion is the SUP 21-15 filling station. Mark, did you want to take over from here?
Thank you and good evening, everybody. Item on your agenda 10A, the paperwork begins on page 36 of your agenda packet. It's an item that we're recommending that the Board of Trustees concur with the Planning Commission's recommendation and approve the special use permit number 21-02 for the new Christ Oil filling station be located at the southwest corner of Pickard and Isabella, subject to the following 4 conditions: that a final site plan be approved by the Planning Commission. The hours of operation shall be limited from 6 a.m. to midnight. No loudspeakers or amplified music would be used outside of the building. That there be a decorative masonry wall along the south and west sides of the building, and a greenbelt buffer screening plantings, whatever they decide, to adequately buffer the adjacent residents from the facility, and that the applicant would acquire a traffic study to analyze the impact on traffic that the new filling station would possibly create. Those are all conditions that were recommended by the Planning Commission, that there's no additional conditions that are being recommended by the administration. A filling station is an allowed use in the B7 district, although it does require a special use approval. The Chris Filling Station has dozens of facilities around the Upper Peninsula, Minnesota, Wisconsin, so they are an experienced operator in this field. They're trying to expand some of their operations into the Lower Peninsula, maybe the northern Lower Peninsula, hence their application to set up operations here in Union Township. The public input that's occurred to date, on June 15th, there was a Planning Commission meeting held. It comprised a public hearing and then deliberations by the Planning Commission after that public hearing. They decided to postpone any action at that time until their July meeting. So then at their July 20th meeting, they reviewed the public hearing comments, some additional written comments that had come in the meantime, and additional information that was provided by both the applicant and staff. Following their deliberations, they did vote to recommend approval of the special use permit to the Board of Trustees, hence that's the item in front of you right now. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. If they get too technical, we have our Community Economic Development Director here, as well as representatives from the applicant.
I'd like to make a motion
Thank
to
you.
approve the PSUP 21-02 special use permit for the new Christ Oil filling station located on the southwest corner of East Pickard Road and South Isabella Road in the northeast one-quarter section of Section 14 and in the B7 Retail and Service Highway District, zoning district, subject to the following conditions. 1, final site plan approval by the Planning Commission. 2, the hours of operation will be limited from 6 a.m. to midnight, and no loudspeakers or amplified music will be used outside of the building as confirmed by the applicant. Number 3, decorative masonry will be provided along the south and west side of the paved area along with required green belt buffer or evergreen screen, plantings adjacent to the lot boundaries to adequately buffer adjacent residences from visual and noise impacts. And number 4, as confirmed by the applicant shall engage in a qualified traffic engineering consultant to conduct a traffic impact study of the proposed use, site plan, and traffic conditions at East Pickard and South Isabella Road intersection, and shall implement recommended mitigation measures identified by the study, if any, on the final site plan for the Planning Commission review and action.
I support.
Motion and support and discussion.
I think they did a wonderful job laying this project out. As I researched it and looked at it very closely, I welcome this filling station to our community, and I'm glad they chose us.
Me too.
Thank you.
Yep, excellent.
I agree with you, Jeff. I mean, one other thing, you come in from that side of town, it's gonna be nice to see a nice building over there.
It's clean.
You know, I mean, just down the road here, when the project was done on the southwest corner of Lincoln and Remus Road down here, it really improved the looks of Mount Pleasant when you come in on West 20. Now when you come in on East 20, Pickard, it's gonna look a lot better. I mean, those pictures of your stations, they're phenomenal.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I
They're clean
appreciate the
stations.
work.
I mean, I've worked on a lot of gas stations, and I'll work on yours.
No, no, no. Not the time for that.
I retract that last statement. No, but they're good looking, you know. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, that property's been an eyesore for some time, and it's really good that it'll be cleaned up.
The only thing I wanted to say is actually in the paperwork, just making sure the postpone action until the date on there. The 2 is left out, so it says 201 instead of 2021. But yeah. I just, for signing purposes, I just wanted to let you guys know. But other than that, I'm for it, so we're good.
As far as food, what is the food offered? I mean, is this is there fast food? You got making burgers in there, or is it more like a?
We're more like a mini grocery store.
Okay. Okay. Any
We have fast food, prepackaged.
prepackaged? Okay. All right. Thank you.
I have a question. Should I abstain for what I just said earlier?
No, you're all right.
No, just special use.
No, you don't. This
Yeah.
is a special use permit.
Yeah.
You have no
I just,
potential conflicts
no,
on
I
a special
just
use
think they're
permit.
good looking. I mean, it's really-
Appreciate you asking.
I have no
Okay.
other questions.
No, I have a comment. I just think it's needed. I really do, because there's, you know, the gas station on the other side, so when you're going the one way, you can just pull in, pull out. You're going the other way, pull in, pull out.
Yeah.
I think it's needed.
All right, anything else? All right, I was gonna say, we need to do a roll call for this one. So, hand it over to you, Clerk Cody.
Trustee Thering,
Yes.
Trustee Hauk,
Yes.
Trustee Brown,
Yes.
Trustee Bills,
Yes.
Treasurer Rice,
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes.
All yeses. All right, and as we mentioned before, we're gonna take a quick 5-minute break.
I'll make a motion.
As long as we can make a motion, yep, thank you.
I'll make a motion to take a 5-minute break to let them get their equipment.
Support?
Support?
Aye.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
All right,
Thanks.
thank you. 5-minute break.
I am.
If everybody's ready, we'll bring it back to order here. We are on 10B, updated global ends. Mr. Stuhldreher?
Thank you. And so you have some paperwork on this item on page 94 of your agenda packet. The board governance policy was originally adopted in 2010. There's been subsequent amendments to it over the intervening years. The purpose of the policy, the entire policy, is to assist the board in the execution of their duties as a policymaking body, and it emphasizes a long-term emphasis or outlook on behalf of the Board of Trustees, and also the discharge of your fiduciary duties. On May 5th and May 26th, the board got together to review the existing ends policy component of the entire policy. It's section 1 of the policy. You got together to review, discuss if you wanted to make any additions or deletions. So we had 2 meetings. That prompted then a draft ends policy be put together, and the board looked at that at your last meeting, which was not your last meeting, 2 meetings prior, your June 14th meeting. A little bit more input was received at that meeting, and so that produces the document that is in your agenda packet tonight. There's a red line version and a clean version in there. The dialogue that we were able to, the results of that dialogue created some focus, additional focus, some new focus in some cases in 4 areas, increasing opportunities for dialogue between the citizens and their elected officials, which is this board, increased emphasis within the ends policies on non-motorized transportation, whether it be in the form of pathways, sidewalks, crosswalks, bike lanes. It also addressed trying to create greater opportunities for residents to achieve an active and healthy lifestyle for the township residents of all ages. And then it also put some additional emphasis within the policy on dialogue between the business community and Union Township to try to create greater opportunities for local businesses. If this is approved, the administration would focus its efforts on these additions to the ends policies, along with the others. The others aren't going away. But you'd see that you'd see that come to life through the recommended budget that would come to the Board of Trustees later on this year. And so that would create funding to address, all of our needs and wants. So this is for you to discuss. I think I've captured the discussion pretty well. That was the impression I got at the last meeting. So I'll turn it back over to you, Madam Chair.
Okay. All right. Do we have anybody that wants to make a motion or discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve the Board of Trustees approval of the Section 1 ends of the board governance policy.
Support.
Okay. Motion and support. Further discussion.
I have one.
Okay.
On natural environment, I would like to make an amendment. I would like to kind of increase 1.5.4 to add another line underneath that would say transition to all LED lighting in the township. Because I don't think that's an alternative form of energy. That's not a form of energy. That's a alternative lighting source.
Where is that at?
One
Isn't that a
point,
little too specific though?
Specific.
Because there could be, there
67.
could potential, if we say LED, then
67.
that's what we're married to. What if something?
non-fluorescent. How about that?
Page 67, right here, 1 point.
Well, what if tomorrow they come up with a fluorescent
She wants
bulb
to
that's more
add
energy
to that.
efficient than, I'm just saying what if.
Yeah.
So I think this, I
Well,
would hate to be too specific.
well, we've got a 1.3.4.1, which says create bike lanes on roads. That's pretty specific.
1.3.4.1. Yep.
I just don't think that 1.5.4 includes the lighting that I wanted to transition. I mean, and I don't know if there's support for it, but I thought there would be support for that. That seems to be the cheapest thing we could possibly do to increase our efficiency and to save the taxpayers some money over the long term.
We had talked about LED before.
We have,
Like
yeah.
3 years ago, something like that.
Mhm.
There's really no reason not to transition to that.
Are these LED?
No.
No.
Because you can, you can purchase the ballast and put, they look like fluorescent bulbs, but they're not. So you'd really never know if these were not LED or not.
Yeah, my landlord just did that for my office.
Okay.
I'm sorry, was there a question to me?
No, I was, well,
Yeah, there was. We have a combination currently of LED and fluorescent, and we also have a combination of motion detector switches and all that. So that's the answer to your
yeah,
question.
thank you.
Any other discussion about the LED or anything else?
Actually, I do. Mark, how would you, what is your interpretation then of that?
We
Of the-
would probably continue the effort of that transition that's currently, that we've been doing. I mean, we used to have all incandescent or fluorescent, whatever it is. We're transitioning to other types of light bulbs. You know, we're going to continue to do that. There might be technical reasons where you can't get it installed in certain areas, so there'd probably be some study that, you know, that we'd have to do. You know, so we're just going to
Yeah.
keep down that path.
Right.
What I'm not gonna suggest is, if you approve this tonight with the change, which, you know, is completely up to you, that we're gonna go out starting tomorrow and start unscrewing light bulbs and replacing them. I mean, that's not gonna happen. And it would happen in a methodical way that, you know, make sure we have sufficient lighting, you know, in offices and that type of thing, you know. But I don't think it's any big deal one way or the other.
I think I'm pretty comfortable with, we know we're moving in that direction. I don't know if we need to get too
Specific.
technical, as long as we know we're moving in that direction. Connie, do you feel comfortable with that, as long as we know we're moving with that, or do you?
Yeah, I feel comfortable with that, as long as we have some kind of, I mean, are we gonna have a time frame, or is it gonna be 20 years down the road, we're still dealing with fluorescent?
Well,
you know.
there is a cost to, so if half the
But there's
ballasts go
also-
out in these rooms, that might be the opportunity to say, okay, you wanna know what? Let's do the whole room, but right now, everything's up and running.
Yeah,
So you would, in my opinion, if this were my business, I wouldn't go in and say, well, you know, let's just do them all for the reason. I mean, I'm satisfied with the manager's interpretation of the ends, that as we move forward, when it's appropriate, you know, that's the direction we're going in.
well, I don't know what the difference in cost is, but I can tell you that the ballasts on a fluorescent are very loud, on an older fluorescent,
Sure.
and they're horrible to be around. And I think that's why I changed mine out.
Yeah.
That, and the fact that they're cheaper and they last longer.
I think that, and this might be a good time for this, a couple things. One, I would caution you to open the door to getting too specific. If you get too specific, you may not recognize it, but you're kind of boxing in the administration. You'll see reference to this later on in your meeting. The administration's performance is judged on the accomplishment of your ends. And if you get too specific, you run the risk of that the administration is only going to focus on those couple things, you know, at the expense of all the other things. So that's one item. And then the specificity, I think, gets in the way of your emphasis that you want to try to maintain of looking outward, not at the details. You know, my interpretation of 1.5.4 right now is that we're wanting to increase the use of alternative forms of energy within the township facilities and operations to become more energy efficient and to become more cost effective. You know, otherwise, why would you do it?
Right.
So I think some of that, what you're driving at is a given. And then the other thing that Trustee Bills just mentioned, the time horizon. I don't know how many there are. There's 20 things in your ends policy, and not all of them can get worked all at once every year. Some of them by design or not design, but by reality are going to take years to accomplish. And I think you have opportunities to monitor whether we're achieving some or all of your ends throughout the year. If you start trying to get too specific, you'll fall into the same trap. If you want something done by, you know, August 31st, we're going to have to set everything aside to try to accomplish that. And then we're going to run into a problem because I won't set everything aside, because 90% of what we do is driven by rules, regulations. You know, that's where most of our time and energy is spent on the nuts and bolts. I know they're not glamorous and all that, but the reality is the nuts and bolts of the operation are critical. So that's just my thoughts on some of that.
Well, it's safe to say that every one of them costs money. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, everything we try to accomplish with these it's gonna cost us. We've talked about that before too.
And I also believe it's safe to say that we all want to move to a more efficient footprint here in Union Township. I think we all have that drive. And so I believe when I read the 1.54, that to increase the use of alternative forms of energy, we're thinking solar, the lighting, windmills, what have you. We're looking at all of that. And so that's why I believe to get very specific would be kind of dangerous. I agree with the manager on that. So that's just kind of how I feel about it.
Manager, Mark has even talked about, you know, even conserving energy with timers, and, you know, that's even thinking a little bit farther away from that. So that's, I mean, that's where I'm very comfortable with Mark's interpretation of the 1.5.4.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right. Not seeing any more discussion. Let's call the vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, granted. It passed. All right, and let's move on to C, Water Tower Painting and Maintenance Contract. And I'll hand it over to you, Mr. Stoldemeyer.
Thank you. And this paperwork begins on page 100 of your agenda packet. We're asking the board to consider approval of a bid from LC United Painting Company of Sterling Heights, Michigan, in the amount of $183,500 for the maintenance and repairs to the Broadway, Deerfield, and Lincoln water storage tanks. We have various inspections conducted over the years and throughout the year. We've had a couple in the last several years that identified some areas that we needed to address within our water towers in order to continue to be able to meet regulatory requirements and best practice standards. These studies were done by, recommendations were done by both Eagle and Dixon Engineering that helps us maintain and keep an eye on these water towers. We requested bids. We received 6 sealed bids. This recommendation, they were the low responsive bidder. So we got the best of both worlds. They were the low bidder and they were responsive. The work includes inside and outside painting at Broadway Tower, and then across all 3 towers, various repairs of various magnitudes. I'm not going to go into all those here. They are in your packet. But by doing these repairs, we'll prolong the useful life of the water storage tanks, which is critical to our ability to continue to deliver safe and on-time water to our customers. Funds were budgeted for this in the FY21 budget, and we would expect substantial completion of the project by the end of the year. If you have any questions, be happy to answer them. We also have Public Services Director Kim Smith if you get too technical.
I'll make a motion to approve the bid from LC United Painting Company of Sterling Heights, Michigan, in the amount of $183,500 for the interior overcoat, wet interior repaint, dry interior partial painting, overflow modification at the Broadway Road water storage tank, and modification to the overflows, and completion of maintenance items at the Deerfield Road and Lincoln Road water storage tanks.
I'll support that.
All right, motion and support. Discussion.
I was shocked at the disparity of the bids. Did you see that?
Yeah, it's good, I know.
That is shocking. That's all I have to say.
Has the township used LC United Painting Company in the past for services?
We have.
Okay. And you, yeah.
And
Thank
they
you.
had a huge, good recommendation. Did you see that letter?
Yeah.
Okay.
and
Yeah.
Dixon Engineering is top quality.
Yeah.
I feel very comfortable with what Ms. Smith has done in putting this all together. Everything that I've researched looks very good. After kind of doing this business myself, it looks good.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right, not seeing any more. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, and it passes.
Gonna have a beautiful water tower.
Yeah.
Did they do this one over here? Did they do the one?
That was done by, hold on, I have to look, 'cause they did on this one too.
That was like 3 years ago, right?
Right.
They're nice guys. They're all probably nice, they're painters.
Michael Cole did this one.
Okay.
Okay. All right, moving on to D, fiscal year 22, mid-year budget amendment number 3.
So we're asking the board tonight to consider approval of the mid-year budget amendment for fiscal year 2021 for the general fund, the fire fund, the East DDA fund, the West DDA fund, the tribal 2% fund, the sewer fund, and the water fund, with the approval of the East and West DDA funds conditioned on the EDA's approval at their meeting that will be held August 2021. they have not approved these budget amendments yet, so they do have a requirement to approve their budget amendments. We weren't able to get that on their agenda in time for their meeting earlier this month, so we're asking that the approval of those two funds be conditioned on the EDA's eventual approval. If they do not approve it, then your action as it relates to those two funds would just simply become null and void, and we'd end up coming back to you with those two budget amendments. Having said that, budget amendments are required under the Uniform Budget Act when it's known or anticipated that either revenues or expenditures are likely to differ in a material way from what was set up during the original budget. And that is, and we do that by, internally we monitor the budget. We have quarterly budget to actual meetings with department heads. So the idea is to keep an eye on your budget. If there is a shock to the system financially, if you're keeping an eye on it often enough, then you have time to react on the operation side before you get too far underwater. So that's why we do it. Just go over some of the details. I'm not going to go over all of them. There's line item detail at the account level in your agenda packet. But as it relates to the general fund revenues, the budget amendment is increasing revenues by $282,800. In the general fund, the largest component of that is increases from the state in our estimates of state shared revenue, and also receipt of grant funds from the state where they provided funding for purchasing of half of the high-speed absentee voter ballot machine that we used last year. Clerk Cody had submitted a grant application. It took a bit of time, but that was finally approved and we received those funds. And the other large increase to revenue in the general fund is a contribution from the EDA to support Jameson Hall upgrades. And they've already approved that earlier this year. On the expenditure side, the budget amendment contains $228,646 of additional expenditures. The largest components are to the election department. At the beginning of the year, we thought there were going to be 0 elections. Now we're likely looking at 3. So that added, so we had to fund that activity, so that added approximately $15,000. We also have funding in here for the contributions to the Isabella County Road Commission for the chip seal program that we received funding for from the 2% grant application. That goes into the tribal fund. A budget amendment moves it to the general fund and allows us to spend it on the program that it was meant for. And also Meridian Road resurfacing is part of that $286,000. And then also we have some increased funding for sidewalks and pathways along Broomfield and Bluegrass that we hope to be able to execute this year. But with that hope, we need funding for it. And then lastly, the landscaping that's occurred recently at Township Hall is part of that number. The net impact to the general fund is an increase in the year-end fund balance by $54,000. So we are adding to fund balance, which is a good thing. Sometimes you're taking away from fund balance. In this case, we're adding $54,000 to the projected year-end fund balance. As it relates to the fire fund, revenues in this budget amendment are increasing by $55,000, and that's to account for the City of Mount Pleasant's Fire Department. They received money through the CARES Act that effectively reduced their expenditures it provided funding to pay for their expenditures in the fire department from the federal government. And we have a contract with the city for the provision of fire services, so we pay the city. So when they get money that helps them, although they have no contractual obligation, they are good partners and they are sharing in the same formulas that was used to establish the price to begin with of the contract. So that accounts for $55,000 of additional revenue into the fire fund. There are no expenditure changes in the fire fund. So that fire fund balance will also increase by $55,000. The tribal 2% fund, we need to account for the award of $38,227 that we received earlier this year for the chip seal program that we're going to be doing throughout the township, and expenditures will also be increasing by the same amount in the tribal 2% fund to account for the transfer to the general fund. The net impact on the tribal fund is zero, which is kind of what we want it to be. The EDA fund, there are expenditure increases of $200,000. That's a net number. There's some increases and decreases in the expenditures in the EDA fund. There's a decrease due to favorable bids that we received when we went out looking for a consultant to update the development plan and the TIF plan for both the east and the west EDA. We had budgeted a certain amount of money for that. I don't recall the exact amount. We went out for bids. It was competitive. The EDA took care of all this. And we ended up saving, I think, maybe $20,000 per fund on that contract. So those expenditures are going down in that regard. They're also going up because the EDA has taken action to purchase property at the corner of Pickard and Enterprise. There's a building there, that program that we're trying to put together. We purchased that property. We're able to move the current pump station elsewhere on the property. That should reduce our construction bids that we keep getting high bids on. This is pump station number one. One of the reasons for those high bids is we have a very small construction easement area to work within. We can buy that property, create space for that program. It'll save money in the water and wastewater fund. And then we're also then able with DDA funds to, I'll say, prep the property and market it for future development. So hopefully then we'll own it for a minute, a little bit of luck, and then turn around and hopefully sell it for development. So that's $250,000 of additional expense on the EDA side. So the net impact to the EDA fund is a decrease in the projected year-end fund balance by $199,050. That's okay. They have a couple $1 million of fund balance. And then on the West EDA fund, we're increasing revenues in this amendment by a little under $8,000 in property tax projections. Expenditures were increasing by $45,000, again, to try to increase, create some funding for opportunities that we hope we can execute yet this year in the area of pathways and sidewalks. The sewer fund revenues in the budget amendment are going up $7,500. That's due to two line items primarily. Inspection fee revenue we're projecting to be higher than the original budget, and fines and forfeitures were we're expecting to be higher. Expenditures in this sewer fund in the budget amendment are set to decrease by $54,425 net. It's net of various line items. Some go up, some go down. Note that the line item in overtime is looking to be increased. And then there's a decrease in capital projects in the sewer fund. We're just not going to be able to get to the pump station 18 project that was part of the original budget. We're going to move that to 2022, so therefore we don't need the funds in the budget, so we're reducing the budget because of that. The water fund revenue, same thing as the sewer, increases of, in this case, $5,000, but due also to inspection fees and fines coming in higher than what we think we'll eventually get with the original budget. Expenditures going down a net of $27,000. Again, it's a combination of things. The largest increase on the expenditure side is we're needing to purchase more water meters. Our water meters are beginning to age, and the frequency of us needing to replace those is increasing. So we need to have some on the shelf, or we need to have funds available so we can go buy them. So when people's water meters do go out, we can get them replaced. There's a lot more detail in the agenda packet, but that's the high level. Be happy to answer any questions anybody may have. We also have the finance director, Ms. Teal, here tonight.
All right. Go ahead.
I think you did an excellent job explaining. I'll make a motion if we're good.
Yeah.
Make a motion for board approval of the 2021 budget amendment, number 3 for the general fund, fire fund, East DDA fund, West DDA fund, tribal 2% fund, sewer fund, water fund, and approval of the East DDA fund and the West DDA fund budget conditional on the EDA's board's approval at the meeting in the August 2021.
Support.
Okay, motion and support. Discussion?
Go ahead.
Oh, I didn't catch how much we were spending on, how much we were increasing spending on sidewalks this year. $7 million. 7 million? He said 7 million, is that right?
Oh, I did.
Variety of them.
I didn't mean to say 7 million.
No, I was a joker over here.
He was joking.
I'm sorry.
I know how much she loves her sidewalk.
70, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
70, I see it now.
Yep.
Oh, was it 70? I'm sorry.
That's what it says,
I
yeah.
misread
Couple of
that.
zeros.
Didn't mean to
misread
burst your bubble.
Yeah, yeah.
I misread that, I apologize.
Without running a tape, I think this budget amendment has about $150,000 in additional funding for sidewalks,
Oh, wow.
pathways.
Great.
We need the funding. You know, we do have constraints. I just want to manage some expectations. You know, we have constraints from a staffing perspective
Right.
to be able to, you know, get all the easements, monitor the consultants and put out for bid and all that jazz, but can't do any of it without funding.
Right.
Right. Any other discussion?
I just had a question. We had overtime for water main breaks, whatever was the result of this one down here on Pickard? What happened?
Going into the
third
subdivision.
one
Down at the
Pickard.
subdivision?
Yeah, right by the subdivision. That was a bad one.
The entrance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry,
Well, I just wondered what happened down there. I mean,
I'm
They
not
drilled-
sure.
the
I don't know if
contractor
Ms.
drilled
Smith
into
knows.
it.
The contractor, directional drilling contractor drilled
yeah,
into the water main,
yeah.
and it wasn't marked because it was in a well, there was a mark out there, but the water main was actually in a different location than on the as-built drawings.
Not as bad as the one out on Mission and Broomfield that one day.
Yeah, that
Boy,
was
that's a
bad.
bad one the city had.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, in the corner.
Yeah, and that was marked too. And they warned them, but that was a bad one.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Nope.
All right, then I'm going to hand it over to Clerk Cody for roll call.
Treasurer Rice,
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes. Trustee Bills,
Yes.
Trustee Brown,
Yes.
Trustee Hope,
Yes.
Trustee Thering,
Yes.
all yeses.
All right, motion passes. And that brings us on to E, utility billing late fee discussion. And I'll hand it over to Mark.
Thank you. There was a report that was presented to the board, I want to say May, that I may have that wrong, but that discussed two things. One, monitoring water usage, and then a second part of the report had to do with the late fee charges on water bills that's defined in our current ordinance. And the board wanted to continue to have, or wanted to have some continued discussion on the penalty charges. So I took the portion of the report, the original report that had to do with the late fees out, is in your packet in memo form. I'll just note that the reason that all utilities apply penalty charges is to in fact incentivize customers to pay their bill in full and on time, so that we have the cash flow necessary and funding is available when we need it to pay salaries and maintenance expenses, that kind of thing. Both the ordinance and policy governance requires fair and non-discriminatory enforcement, which we feel we do. The charge is proportional to the water usage, and that it's percentage based. So, you know, if you have a company or a facility or an account that you know, gets a $50,000 quarterly water bill and they're late, they get charged the same percent as the residential $100 water bill. But of course, those absolute dollars are considerably different. But this is an opportunity for you all to discuss the current ordinance.
All right, so open it up for discussion. Trustee Bills?
I think what the spreadsheet here shows us is that we're the highest percentage in the area, but it doesn't show us how much the relative cost for the water is in these areas. Do you know, Kim?
How much what costs?
What do you mean by?
Like our base fee is $54 or something like that for base water bill. You know what I mean?
That's different for all of these communities, and even the way that we bill is different
Yeah.
from community to community.
Okay.
So that information's not in the report.
Mm-hmm.
And the quarterly charge, if you look at some of them, they're monthly, so they actually are equal to ours, or I think there's one that's less than us. Other than that, we're all pretty close.
Well, but I think our percentage is pretty high compared to everybody else. That's what's glaring to me.
And I think the point that was being made is a 10% late charge that's applied monthly is different, but not materially different than a 15% charge that's applied quarterly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but if they
So-
charge a third of what ours is monthly, then the cost is still less. I mean, it's a percentage, so, and then there's no fees here, so I don't know, but the bottom line, I think, is that we're charging a lot, but I don't know, the larger amount is not as noticeable to a large corporation either, on the other hand, so.
Clerk Cody?
So I'm just looking at this chart, so I apologize if it's somewhere else on here. But, okay, so ours is 15%. Is it just capped, or like 15% and that's it? Or is it the next billing cycle it's additional, or is there more, or
Well, if they pay
or
their
it just
bill,
gets shut off?
If they pay their bill, so the penalties are applied,
Mm.
and then they have another, after penalties are applied, they have 35 days to pay their bill. And then after that, then penalties are applied. They have another 30 days to pay before we shut off. So if they pay their bill, then there would be no additional late charges the next quarter, but if they continue to have a bill that they're not paying, then they would be charged 15% on whatever the outstanding balance is.
Of the bill. If they paid their bill but not the penalty, does that get an additional charge on it? You may have just said that and I just didn't pick that up.
Yeah, so, well, not if they pay it with their next bill on time.
So they owe $100 and they're late and they get a 15% fee and they pay the $100 but they didn't pay the 15% fee.
Right, so that would roll onto their next bill.
Okay.
If they pay it as part of their next bill, which is what most people who don't pay that with their late, the
Right.
quarter before, then they would not pay any more penalty.
Okay.
But if they continue to leave that on their bill and not pay it, then they would pay 15% on whatever that is.
On the
Because it's
15
on the outstanding balance.
So on the $15
Right.
is what it'd be, okay. It wouldn't be the whole bill, it's just 15% of that $15 that they did not pay.
Right, if
they
they're
go
just,
delinquent, it would be the whole
It
bill.
would be the whole bill again.
The next quarter.
The next
Yeah.
quarter.
Unless they got a $50,000.
Because that's their bill.
How many times does this happen? How many times do we apply this 15% to customers?
Quarterly.
I mean, how?
wasn't it about 49 times, is that what I saw in your report?
49 times a quarter, 50 times a quarter, 50 customers?
Oh, that's
average?
shut-offs.
Oh, shut-offs, I'm sorry.
The township does between 40 and 60 shut-offs every quarter. We apply a lot more late charges than that because there are quite a few customers who do not pay on time. And so we send out a notice that they're gonna be late, if they're gonna get shut off, but they know that they have a late charge after 35 days. And some people pay it with the bill if they pay it late, some people roll it onto the next bill. And then normally by then if it's water, they are discontinued, they're discontinued. So then they pay it before the water's turned back on.
And then they have to pay a shut-off and a turn-on fee.
Correct.
Yep.
What is that, Kim, for a shut-off and turn-on fee for Union Township?
For a late charge, just a regular shut-off is 45, that just went up last year, so excuse me, it's been the same for years.
That's right.
And then it's $30 for a quarterly, so if you're shut off for non-payment.
So we're not, it's not like $150. to
No.
turn the water back on, okay.
I'm all in favor of the 15%. I have no issue with that. I've said it before where I just possibly think, and I'd like to hear some feedback on the discussion of a cap, but understanding that if they don't pay that, they have an opportunity to pay their delinquent bill, and if they don't pay it again, well, then you say you shut them off?
Yes.
Okay, so then that takes care of that. So I'm all in favor of the 15%. I just would like to see that have a cap.
Of what, how much?
Well, well, first of all, I'd like to know what the room thinks about that.
I would
How that
be-
affects, I'd like to know how that affects the department. Kim,
Sure, I can.
your thoughts, Mark, and the board. A cap. Now, the amount of money, we can't make it, $50. I don't think, but if we do decide on a cap, I think there should be a differential between residential and commercial and industrial.
I don't know.
Because of the usage.
To help put it in a bit of perspective, and the data happens to be in your agenda packet tonight. In the sewer fund, we originally budgeted $28,000 in these charges, in the fines and forfeiture line item. And I think most of that is what we're talking about here. We added 5,000 through the budget amendment, so we're up to $33,000. We anticipate $1 million, almost $400,000 in base charges on the sewer. Just the base part of the bill. So you're looking at, what you're discussing is what to do with 1.5% of revenue off the base charge. Okay, so you're discussing just not a lot of money, okay? And if you compared the $28,000 to your total revenue within the sewer fund, it would probably be 0.5%. That's what you're spending your time on. And on the water side, it's similar, not exact, budgeted $16,000 of fines and forfeitures in the water fund, and that might be around 2% of the base charge for the water, the principal amount of the bill, if you will. And again, if you look at these revenues from the total revenue of the fund, it's less than 1%. And I don't want to dissuade you from spending your time on this, because that's your right, but I just want to put it in perspective. And whatever you do, whether it increases it or decreases it, it's going to be at the margin of a small amount of money to begin with. Okay?
You're right, but you also look at it, very well, thank you for saying that, you're right. But I'm assuming that it's kind of unheard of that we would have 3 different commercial businesses that had quite a few $1,000s in penalty fees, which they brought on themselves. So I'm just trying to not, the fund as a whole, it's a small percentage, but to that individual business, we'll say, that's in our community, that's a big hit. When you have to pay a $4,000 or $5,000 or $6,000, $7,000 fee. So that's where I'm looking more as an individual rather than the whole fund. You are right, Mark, and so I'm looking at that as more of if you owned an apartment complex and you made a mistake and you do need to pay the fee because you are late, I think that's right, but I don't know that, $4,000 or $5,000. I would just like your thoughts on that. If that's something, if you're fine with it, then, we can move on. If you have similar thoughts, then.
And then I also would like you to note that all of you, that the ones you see are the ones that have asked for forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
You maybe see 3 or 4 a year, but there's, whatever the number you've mentioned, a large number of accounts that just go, yeah, I was late, I paid it. Or they come and we go, we don't have the authority to address your concern, the Board of Trustees do. Some of them follow through, some don't. And then maybe just trying to bring it back to your policy governance, you might want to try to discuss that from the perspective of what is your policy objective that you're trying to achieve.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Pardon me?
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Well, and you make a point, as you look into this graph, thank you for putting this graph up
Yeah.
here for the other municipalities. I think there's a reason why they all say no on the late fee cap. One, Mark mentioned, it is a smaller amount of money, but 2, you have to track it. So whatever we do, we're gonna put labor to track whatever, we're adding more work to someone. I have to agree with Bill. If it's not, if it isn't, I don't believe it's broke at this time. I'm comfortable with just the way it is, personally.
If you put a fee on something, though, you're tracking that. If you
Yeah,
put
well,
a fee,
well,
whatever it is, a cap.
Yeah, we have to put a fee on our late charges. I mean, that's just that's a given.
Right, but you have to track it. Somebody's tracking it to make sure it's
The
paid.
computer does.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I can't argue that.
I don't know, James, you like putting a cap on it, like, how do you put a cap on if a big apartment complex is using 100,000 gallons of water
Right.
and they pay their bill late and we're gonna say, okay, we're gonna put a $500 cap
Oh,
on
they're
it,
not gonna pay.
And then you look at a residential customer that uses 1,000 gallons a month and, we're gonna, I just.
Well, Mark made a good point when he said that, 15% on a quarterly bill is way different than,
Yeah.
we'll say 15% on a monthly bill.
Monthly.
I'm just looking at it as I don't know what the odds of having that many high dollar late fees, I guess. To me, I thought maybe we could be, and not that we're not being, maybe we're being a better steward of our township by leaving it alone. And if that's how we feel, then you know, I would definitely be for that. Or maybe we should consider the individual businesses and
They should consider their utility bills. I pay my
Sure.
bills when I get them for my business. I don't wait 30 days, you know? I don't know what to tell you. That I don't let stuff go,
I
you
mean,
know?
actually, I think we're lower than others, because, I mean, you think we're 15%, but that's quarterly, that's every 3 months. They're 10% every single month.
Yeah, but that,
So
well,
isn't that like 30%?
no.
Or no?
well, if
Is
they
it
pay
just
the
one
bill,
time at 10%?
if it's one time that somebody misses it, then they pay that 10% and they're done.
Well, if, you know, if they pay $100 bill once a month and they're late, it's 10%. But now, if it's quarterly, it's $300 and it's 15%.
Yeah, okay.
But you know, it sounds like the consensus of the board is that
But either way,
we're
we've
okay
gotten
right now. So
4 complaints in the last almost 5 years, because I've seen 4. And that's not very many in 5 years. It's been about 4 in 5 years, I think.
There's been 3 in the last, since I've been
Yeah.
on the board.
Yeah, I'm just
Yeah,
I'm
we
a
had
little
one
sticker
other
shock.
than
To be
that.
honest
And
with you,
we-
but
yeah.
this is
We had
if
one.
this is normal business, then this is normal. Then this is what it is.
Maybe it's just COVID.
Yeah, because I think we had one before that.
Yeah.
I can blame it on COVID. I have no problem.
Well,
Yeah.
One of them
didn't
was
one
a
of them
line
say
break.
that they
Yeah, that's right.
just purchased one of the complexes? Well, do you think water's free? I
Yeah.
mean, You know, they gotta know the utilities are.
But I'm not trying to excuse
No.
excuse the fee by any stretch. But well, I guess you know, it sounds like that we're okay.
Yeah, sounds like we're good.
Okay.
I believe, I like this system the way it is now, after we've discussed it.
I'm glad we saw this chart because, you know, nobody else has a cap. I think then that, we don't want to set a precedent
Yeah.
there.
Plus, it's 15% because it's Union Township water. Kim Smith gives the best water. Of course, it's going to be more. Just is.
Pay your bill,
It is pretty good water,
Yeah.
that's for sure.
or you'll pay the VIG, right?
Hey, I appreciate the discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. And do you need any further action on that, Mr. Stolperoy? Okay. All right. So moving on. Let's go to F. Policy Governance 2.0, Global Executive Constraint. And hand it over to Mark.
So this is an opportunity for the board to review compliance with Governance Policy 2.0 on your monitoring schedule. This is done each July. The policy wording, and it's a fairly short policy, is that the township manager shall not cause or allow any practice, activity, decision, or organizational circumstance which is either unlawful, imprudent, or in violation of commonly accepted public administrative practices and professional ethics. And I interpret this policy that to say that all applicable ordinances, statutes, and laws, whether at the local level, state level, or federal level, be adhered to by all staff as they conduct their operations, and that there will be no deviation from accepted administrative practices and particularly professional ethics. And I think that that is a reasonable justification based on the wording of the policy itself. The data that is in your report that I think supports the fact that we are in compliance. We had an audit opinion for the FY20 fiscal year that said our financial statements were presented fairly with no material weakness. There was no corrective action measure that was issued, and that they can be safely relied on by the folks that need and pay attention to financial statements of local governments. Also, all the department heads and many of the staff members belong to or are in good standing with their professional trade associations. Each one of those has ethics clauses, which to maintain in good standing, you have to have met those. Our water and wastewater operation, we operate according to the 10 state standards, which is again one of these best practice type of things. During 2020, we did in fact implement all related required COVID rules that were coming out and changing, and we didn't set those aside because of all the churning that we couldn't keep up. We kept up with all the changes, and we were putting our staff and our citizens, from a safety perspective, that was the priority that was the perspective and the priority we were operating from, to make sure that we're operating from a best practice and a current standards perspective. In 2020, we updated, and maybe into 2021, we've updated several ordinances, local ordinances over the last year, to make sure we are staying current with the times, we are operating with best practices in mind. We updated the housing code, the construction code, the municipal ordinance violations bureau code, and we did some zoning related updates as well. There's more data in the report that I didn't touch on here, but from our perspective, we think we're in compliance and be happy to listen and receive any feedback you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Stoldreyer. All right, so I guess bringing this to the board, do you guys want me to go through the questions or just open it up for discussion for you guys for your input, or?
I think just go through the questions.
Go through the questions, like, okay?
Ryan's done, you know, he's
Yep, all
done it.
right.
I mean,
Oh,
Go ahead.
what?
I would just say, do you have any no's, and then go through it.
That
There you
works
go.
for me.
Because, I mean, I just filled out the survey, and I
Yeah.
mean,
Yep,
that's really when you only need to talk,
right. So,
I think.
all right, is everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Yes.
All right, so do we have any that, you guys want to bring forward that you put no on?
No?
No.
I have
Yes.
none. I'm
Okay.
a yes on all mine.
All right, that makes that easy.
Did you say you did?
No, I marked all, I turned
I-
mine into Tara too. I don't know if
Oh.
you guys want to start doing that because we're in person, if you just want to sign.
I don't have a paper copy
Is
of
is
it.
Oh.
that,
We
is that
didn't
what
put it up.
Oh, no, it's
is
fine.
normal practice?
Well, we used to get your packet, so it would be in your
Yeah,
packet.
so I guess-
Now it's all here, so,
Electronic file, send them the file with it, maybe.
Or you just sign.
Or-
it
Let me
on
think
the
about that, because
Okay.
yes, we go through them every month at our meetings, whether it's remote or in person, but if you were to ask me to pull out the
Forms.
compiled
data or whatever.
Yeah, it'd be nice.
form from a year ago, I wouldn't be able to do it. But since the administration's performance is judged on these things, it's probably not a bad idea to
Okay.
be a little more meticulous in the record keeping.
And it's a different topic, but what about a DocuSign account where you guys could push a DocuSign document to us and we could fill it out and send it back to Tara?
Okay, let's not
Right.
get too technical here, right, Jeff?
I don't know
What?
what that is.
So,
Hold my hand here.
basically,
Well-
they send you a form that you fill out, and you send it back.
I like to just go right here on this, click yes.
No, but
yes,
it goes right down the document for
Yeah.
you, so you just have to click, click, click.
Yeah.
It's
Okay,
very
okay.
easy.
I'm with that.
It's
I
like
think Jeff-
clockwork.
We did take a stab, and it we created a fillable PDF form that looks like this. I haven't deployed it yet because I can't figure out, because you get these things in your agenda packet, and I haven't figured out if it would still be fillable at that point. And then if it is, what are you going to do with it, and how are you going to get it back? And so, but I would like to figure out a way to
Yeah, I guess.
keep.
Well,
keep
until then,
these.
we'll just.
Yeah,
Yeah, just do
I
what
was
we're
gonna say at
doing
this
and-
point, once we'll follow your direction, once you
Yeah.
figure, once
Yeah.
you decide what you'd like to do with them, just let us know. Cause I have no problem filling it out or however you wanna do it.
Just so you know, though, I think it's only less than a couple $100 a year for an account. And then you can use it as many times as you want for any signatures you need. And my real estate agents all use it.
Right.
You know, they're not mine. I mean, the people.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
So, back to the form. Did anybody have any other comments that they want to share? I know we all said that, yes, we're in compliance, and yes,
I'm ready to
good.
move on.
Okay, all right, so that's good. Moving on to G, Policy Governance 2.5, Financial Condition and Activities.
This is a quarterly report or quarterly policy. It's a policy that's evaluated for compliance on a quarterly basis. It's on page 149 of your agenda packet. Policy itself is quite long. I'm not going to read it all, but the top level wording is, with respect to actual ongoing financial condition and activities, Township management team shall not cause or allow the development of fiscal jeopardy or a material deviation of actual expenditures from board priorities established in the ends policies. And so what does that all mean? My interpretation of that is that, one, there should be no expenditures made or incurred that will exceed the expenditures that have been approved from a budgetary perspective, unless it's a emergency purchase that and that's addressed in the policy too, certain conditions. If it's an emergency, we're going to do what we need to do, and then we'll circle back with you to get the approval after the fact. That the manager shall not make a single purchase of greater than $10,000. So things that are over $10,000 come to the board for approval. That all tax payments because we act as a conduit, maybe a fiduciary on the tax payments, we're collecting taxes for a number of taxing units, and those funds have to be dispersed within a set period of time from the day we receive them. So interpreting the policy is that all those tax payments are to be made according to state statute, that accounts receivable or accounts payable invoices are processed and ready for board approval as soon as they're received, verified. So that's how I interpret the policy in terms of what it means to us that we should be really focusing on. And I think that's a reasonable interpretation, because it seems to me that when the budget's approved by the Board of Trustees, it's left to the management team to operate. And, you've given us the guidelines. We're supposed to operate within the budgeted guidelines. We're supposed to follow all state, federal statute. And that allows, if we're doing that, if we're allowed to do that, that allows you time to focus on the policy items rather than the minutia. Some data that I'll just touch on. We have not dipped into any long-term general fund reserves. We haven't for a number of years. Our fund balance is quite healthy. You would know it if we were not paying our employees on time. You would know that already.
Because they wouldn't be here.
We do pay the state and the federal government the taxes the withholdings that we're responsible for. Our annual audit, our F-65, the qualifying statements, all these year-end reports that have impact on the township, getting an audit done. by the statutory deadline, filing the F-65 with the state treasurer. The qualifying statement has to do with our ability to issue debt if we needed to. All those filings are accurate and on time. There weren't any purchases that were made that were greater than $10,000 that were not brought to the board. And you may ask yourself, well, how do you know? If I'm just telling you, what's that mean? You're looking at your accounts payable runs every week and those kind of things that stand out if that was going on. All our funds are in good shape. We have good cash flow, so we're not having to worry about that. And then there's in your packet pre-budget amendment, some financial reports, budget to actual, that provide even more data for you. So you boil all that down, and from my perspective, we're in compliance.
Okay.
I agree.
Thank you. All right, so that brings us to the questionnaire. Did anybody put no for anything?
No.
Yes is down the board. All right. Any other further comments or? All right. So, yeah, we are feeling we're in compliance. Straight down the board. So that moves us to H. Policy Governance 4.4, Monitoring Township Manager Performance.
So this is one of the policies where the board, this is a policy that applies to the board. It does not apply to the administration. So you're kind of looking at your own compliance with this policy. And again, this is a little, it's kind of lengthy, and I normally don't spend any time on these policies that are for the board to look at, but in this particular case, I'm going to, because it has a bearing on what we're going to be doing next month. And so policy 4.4 talks about how the board is going to monitor township management performance. Okay, and it states that, and just quoting from the policy, all of the document, systematic and rigorous monitoring of township manager job performance will be solely against the only expected township manager job output, organizational accomplishment of board policies on ends, and organizational operation within the boundaries established in the board policies on executive limitations. And I'm spending a little bit of time on this because, as you may have seen when you read this document, it sets the stage for the performance review of the township manager that occurs next month. Mm-hmm. And what your policy says, and what it's said for a number of years, is that manager's performance is going to be judged on, did we do anything to accomplish your ends? And your ends are in the policy. And did we do that within the box that you've outlined in the executive limitation portion of the policy? And that's important because a lot of things that, and again, I'm going into, this is a new board. I'm going through this yet. But it's easy to fall into a place where an elected body is judging the performance of the manager on things that the manager really doesn't have any control over. And that's fine. I mean, I don't think it's fine, but you don't need reasons to get rid of city managers or township managers. You can just wake up and decide to do it. That's your right. But if you are going to go through meaningful performance monitoring exercise, then you need to understand what it is you're monitoring. And this is saying what you're monitoring. So if I was in your shoes, you know, you get the report every year about how did the administration do against your ends. You know, there's a big report issued in April, you know, ends achievements, or I forget what the title of it was, but it was probably 10 pages long. And what I went through and the organization went through is, here's what we did in the past year, here's how it applied and advanced your ends. So that's one tool that you can use when you're monitoring, when you're trying to do performance evaluations of the manager. And then the other piece is, just like the executive limitation policy we just went through 2.0, you know, that is creating the box that we're supposed to operate within. So all of Section 2 of your ends policies is setting up the box that we're allowed to operate within. If we get outside that box, then, you know, we need to know about it, and that would, that would be a real concern of the board. So I go through all that because the question in July is, when you're monitoring the performance, or when you're reviewing the performance of the manager, are you doing it as it states in 4.4? Well, one, you've never gone through this exercise before, I don't think, because you were only elected in November of 20, and this was all done prior to your election. So, and then also in this this memo, the last paragraph on page 167, you know, I kind of go into this next thing in August related to the review of 4.4, which you're doing tonight. There's going to be 4.5 on your agenda in August. And 4.5 is the actual act of conducting a performance review of the manager. You're going to be doing that, and we're going to be talking about it at your August meeting, because that's what 4.5 says for you to do, and it says we do it in August. Okay? And so then if you go back to page 171 of your agenda packet, I have a couple of things in this packet that are going to help you for next month. One, I provided a monitoring schedule, so one of the things you want to know is, are monitoring reports being submitted timely? You know, they're all listed here. They're the months due. You can go back into your own agenda packets and figure out if they were due or not, if they were submitted or not. And then on page 172, you have the form that the township has been using to do a performance review within the construct of what 4.4 says to do it within. So you have two sections. One is evaluation of the global ends, and they're all listed there. Page 172 through 3/4 of the page of 173, and then at the bottom of 173, you have a section of evaluating manager performance from the perspective of executive limitations. And you have, you know, there's 8 or 9 or 10 policy limitations that are articulated in your policy. They're reproduced here. And so What I'm asking you to do tonight is to, using these documents that are in your packet this month, pull them out, fill them out, so that you all can evaluate my performance at our second meeting in August. And that's going to be an open meeting, which is fine. Some people, when they come onto the boards, they go, well, how can I be frank in an open public meeting? Well, that's what we signed up when we signed up to do this stuff. And I have the right to ask for a performance review in a closed session, but I never availed myself of that. You do not have the right to require the evaluation to be done in closed session, just so you know.
What states that?
The Open Meetings Act. Or what states what? Maybe
I mean, that the board could not request, because
it's specific in the statute. The person that's being reviewed can make that request. Don't ask me why. It's an
That's
additional
something
law.
I don't understand, Mark, because I've been on many boards, I've been on school boards, and I've evaluated principals, evaluated teachers. They aren't in the room, after the.
All I'm saying is that you can't do it in closed session. You could ask me to leave, that's your right. Leave the meeting while you do it, but that's different. I'm just saying, you can't go into closed session. The questions come up in the
Yeah, I
past.
know I've asked that before,
Yeah.
it just seemed, because it just seems weird to me that,
the Open Meetings Act then will not allow us to go into closed session because we are a body that has to come out and act as one.
Well, don't we just average the scores?
Well, we can do all of that. I think the point the only point I'm trying to make is we're a public body. I'm not in any way, well, I want frank feedback, okay? And I don't want you all to hold back because you think it might be embarrassing or uncomfortable because it's on TV or it's an open meeting, there's people in the room. I don't care about any of that. You might, and I appreciate it, but by statute, it's a nice gesture, but you can't go into closed session so that you could, with me in there, so you could be more, because it might be easier to be more frank if it's not being blared out all over the public.
So we couldn't go into closed session. We can't go into closed session even if you're not in the room then.
Right.
Okay. Based on.
I
open
could
meetings.
request that the evaluation be done in closed session. I could request that. That's legal. But I'm just telling you also that I won't make that request.
I see.
Kind of neither here nor there, but
Yeah.
it's new to you also.
well, yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that with me because in all honesty, I just felt the best approach in looking at other boards, but they're not necessarily public boards, they're probably private, is that when they did their evaluation,
These kind of rules wouldn't apply to the private school boards.
right,
There are different rules for schools, there's different rules for universities. Even from a recruitment, at some point you have to be public about who you're interviewing for the job, even though nobody wants to be public about it till, the last second.
I appreciate you
But-
bringing that up and explaining that, because in my mind, I was going to make I don't know if it's a
So I can
motion
wrap
or
all
a
this up
request,
with,
so.
if you can take a look at 4.4,
Yeah.
that's kind of your foundation. look at the forms that are on these pages in your packet, pull them out, fill them out. I need the feedback, I appreciate the feedback, good, bad, or indifferent, I need it. And that's part of what we're going to do at the end of the meeting, the second meeting in August.
Well, something I've never understood about this evaluation is some of the questions on these global ends. You know, for instance, all residents can enjoy a safe environment. Well, I would assume that's up to the resident to,
When I,
you know, I mean,
yeah.
but how does that got anything to do with him?
I believe
When
it's-
I-
believe
when I-
it's-
yeah.
I'm sorry, I believe it's through your eyes, Bill, of what Mark does for our residents.
Yeah.
So how you have to evaluate that, I believe is what we're looking at.
All right, maybe I've just been understanding him wrong all these years, Jeff. I just don't think, in my opinion, I don't think it's kind of fair to him, you know, some of these questions.
when I look at that one, what I usually do is I look at it saying, does Mark do everything in his ability to make it possible for the residents to have, enjoy a safe environment, things like that. I can see where you're coming from, though.
Residents enjoy the natural resources and green space of the township.
Well,
They don't want to do it, they don't, but I mean, I don't understand it.
Is
Yeah,
he
but
supply-
if
is
he's
he- is
overseeing
the
it-
manager supplying that?
if he's overseeing it, making sure that it's there and it's ready, then he's
The light's
doing,
coming on, I understand.
then he's doing all he can.
If we were only cutting the grass in the parks every 8 days.
Right, right,
We
You
would care
know,
about that.
if your picnic tables were falling apart and you
right,
did,
I understand.
you know, it's that kind of thing.
Right.
Is management
Right.
staying on top of that, yeah.
Yeah.
Would it be possible, Tara, maybe for Bill and I, because of our computer abilities,
I couldn't find
could
out.
we get some of these sheets copied off for us?
I was thinking maybe I could have it printed out for everyone.
Oh, that'd be wonderful.
And then we can, yeah.
Just
if that's
the
okay.
fill-out sheets.
Yeah.
Right.
That'd be
Good
super,
question.
thank
I'd
you.
That would
like
be
that.
awesome.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Because I'm going to print mine out, but I'm going to scribble all over it.
So we'll let you know when they're available and just,
Thank you.
Well, it gives
Stop
us
by.
some time to start looking at it now, so that if we have questions, we can, so that we're doing it according to the governance policy.
I'll just be very honest, I can read it all here, but I just don't have a printer to fill it out, so I can print it out and just get it back to you.
Yep.
I just need you to print it for me, please.
and having said all that, if you don't like, I mean, what I've been articulating is just simply what your policy says.
Mhm.
If you don't like your policy, you can change that,
Right.
but.
That I do, I got you.
Understand.
So
Okay,
that's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right,
thank you.
thank you.
Motion to
Thank
adjourn.
you. Well, we got a few more things we got to do.
What do we have more things?
We still have extended
Oh,
public
yeah.
comment and all that stuff. I appreciate the enthusiasm. And with that,
Try, good try.
Told you it's gonna be a
With-
tough corner here.
with that, at 9:06, we will open extended public comment. This is going to be restricted to 5 minutes regarding any issue. So gonna open that up to nobody who's sitting out there, but maybe anybody? All right, close at 9:07, and let's go on to manager comments.
Done, thank you.
Ah, short and sweet. All right, maybe you could have been right. No. Final board member comments. Let's see, I start over here. So, Trustee Hauk, do you have any
Well,
final?
the only thing we talked about a little bit tonight, I know we talked about, I want to know, like, you know, we talked about solar panels a few times. What's the progress on it? I mean, we've been talking about this for 8 months. I mean, is there going to be a study or phone call made or what's going on?
There was a study.
Yeah,
We got a study.
We didn't get them.
Yeah, we got one.
Results.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
It
Dollar
actually,
results and everything?
it actually
Yeah.
came the same day that Mark proposed the,
Well, may
It's
I?
probably at home. I just-
Yeah.
May I?
Go ahead.
Yes, trustee Howard requested some information based on a conversation that he'd had with somebody from Block Electric. We've responded to that. But the more important point on the whole solar thing is just tonight that we approved ends policies that talk
Yeah.
about alternative forms of energy. So now we're in a position to start looking at that and, again, managing expectations. There would have to be studies done. We would need to get, you'll see some of this recommended in the budget. Wouldn't surprise me to see budget recommendations with money to study solar energy, whatever I might call it, applied to the township. So now that it's in the ends policies, we have an obligation balancing out all the ends policies to address the issue.
Perfect.
I
Any-
just have one other
Yep.
thing in the July monthly report, it said that there's negotiations for settlements underway for the extraction, or the excavating companies, the extraction, whatever, it's up on page.
Right. The extraction ordinance.
Yeah, so,
So that's the Zalid matter, legal matter, and the concerned citizen legal matter. And we are having those discussions. And I think we've had 2 in person to date. We exchanged a lot of documents. We have another one scheduled for next week. And then my plan is to have a closed session at the first meeting in August to give you a full update on that. And there'll be another closed session that night too to give you an update on the Pung matter, which you may recall is where we're supplying funding for legal defense costs for one of our former employees. And
That's exhausted though, right? That
so
fund?
that
The-
is.
the
so that,
approved amount,
we
yeah.
need to discuss what we do next. Don't do it now.
Yep.
And we'll give you background in the closed session, then you can come out and discuss and decide what you want to do. But you'll get a full briefing on the settlement discussions.
I'm done, thank you.
Okay.
I don't have any parables or anything. I'm sitting in the chair, Norm had parables every week, every month, I don't have those.
Clerk Cody, do you have anything tonight?
Just don't forget to vote, August 3rd, 2021. And the consolidation for the Commission on Aging, you will be voting, precinct 3, you'll be voting for this election only here at the Union Township Hall.
Great. How are you on helpers and stuff? Do you have enough people to help run it? Or are
As
you
far
still
as
looking
I
for? Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Okay. Any other questions for Clerk Cody? Okay. Come over here to Trustee Brown. Do you have anything?
One thing, I'd just like to voice my opinion on our new hire, Tara. She's been very helpful on the phone, and ever since she's come in, everything that I've asked for, and sometimes can be needy, like when it comes to, how do I turn on my computer? Tara, I just wanted to say thank you, and it is a pleasure having you aboard with Union Township. I appreciate your service. Thank you. That's all I have.
All right. Trustee Bills?
Manager stool dryer, have we submitted completely our application for the stimulus money then?
We have.
I thought so. And then I would like to also echo that because I like Tara a lot. She's fabuloso. And other than that, I'm excited about summer.
Thank you.
All right. And Trustee Thering?
I'm good, thanks.
Okay. And then I just wanted to let you guys know, I am going to be on vacation a little bit here. The August 9th through the 13th. So I actually will not be at our next board meeting, on the 11th. I will be out of state, visiting some family that we haven't seen in many, many years. So, but Mr. Stoldreyer is going to be covering any signatures that need to be done. And I'm going to be taking care of everything else beforehand. Sherry's already been aware of it, and we're coordinating when we need signatures and stuff on things. So, other than that, I don't have anything there.
Yeah, I have one more thing. Thank God for open meetings.
And with that, if there's no other questions, I can take a motion.
I'll do it. Can I make a motion to adjourn?
I will second.
Thank you very much.
It's popular for that, 'cause you know you can do it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, everybody go home.
All right, thanks.